What's up, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the MUPL Coaches Corner. First up, we've got Natalie doing some squat, bench, and deadlift. So let's take a look at some squats. So Natalie, first thing I notice is your short walkout, which I want to applaud you for because those will definitely help you conserve energy once you get to heavier loads. The next thing I notice is that it looks like you're losing a bit of hip tension in the squat. So before you start, let's just make sure that everything is tight. You're doing a great job of pulling the bar into your back, but let's also make sure that you're actively pushing out against your belt as well. From there, it's important to remember to hip hinge first, so it's not just pushing your hips back, but it's actively loading your hips and externally rotating your femurs outwards before you start the descent into the squat. And then for bench, Natalie, these look solid. You're doing a great job of controlling the weight throughout the movement. One thing I am noticing is that your shoulders are kind of jolting into protraction a little bit at the top of each rep. And so one thing I would say to correct that is just pull your shoulders back and down and into their sockets before you start the bench press and keep them retracted throughout the whole movement. And then for deadlifts, Natalie, these look like they're moving pretty well. One thing I am noticing, though, is that when you initiate the pull, you're actually having the slack pulled out of you by the weight instead of you pulling the slack out of the bar before you start. So before you start, think about really arching your lower back and pinning your lats close to you so you can keep that weight close to you as you use the barbell as a counterforce to pull yourself into position before you start.
All right, next up we're taking a look here at Josh doing a set of 4 on the back squat. Josh, first thing that I notice is that you've got a pretty proficient just squat here in general. You've got good hip and knee positioning there on the bottom, and I can tell that we're keeping that torso tight, keeping posture, and especially with the high bar position, just doing a good job of staying upright. That being said, I can tell that this definitely mimics the positioning that I would expect to see from, say, a weightlifter, like an Olympic weightlifter. And I don't know if that's how you got your start or maybe even like in a CrossFit gym or something like that. But I think that we could maybe get a little bit more out of your hip drive and just power coming out of the hole if we switch to a little more of a low bar position and really allowed yourself to get a better hinge in there and just, like I said, recruit more power from your hips when changing direction in the movement. I think that that's, like I said, going to be a bigger change to the squat in general for you. So it might be something that you'd want to try out in, volume work or tempo work, and, maybe take a little bit until you actually start implementing it in your overload stuff or your stuff that most mimics competition. But that would probably be my main little suggestion to you here on the squat. Overall, it looks really good, but there might be some things that we could do structurally to really change the movement for you and hopefully give you an ability to add some weight to the bar. Next, we have Josh here again doing some sumo deadlifts. Josh, the main piece of advice that I have for you correlates pretty heavily with what I was talking about on your back squat, and mainly just recruiting more force development from your hips and really being able to put you in a good position, breaking the floor specifically here on deads where you can, recruit the most strength from those. When you see yourself in this sort of high hip position, that's exactly how I would start, and you're doing the same thing of bringing those hips underneath and pulling that chest up before you get going, but it's being done passively, meaning you're doing it without applying force anywhere else. And the place that we should be applying that force is to the barbell itself. So when your hips are up high, we need to pull the slack out of your shoulders and really pull those into protraction so that it's not happening as we're breaking the floor. And then once you have those shoulders pulled down, you need to actively keep pulling on the bar in order to leverage your hips underneath and pull that chest upright. And that's what you're doing now. Like I said, it's just not being done with force being, put into the bar. And if we do that, you're not going to have this big catch right off the floor where that force just sort of, stalls right below your knees. And that overall, I think, is one, like I said, going to allow you to add some more to the movement in terms of getting your hips more involved, getting your upper back more involved. But it's also going to keep, the movement safe for you and allow you to use that same explosion, but just in a more controlled fashion. All right, last but not least, we're taking a look here at Mr. Nick McBob doing some sumo deadlifts. Nick, not a whole lot for me here to address in regards to your technique, but the main thing that I'm looking at when I watch you break the floor is your chest, shoulders, and eye positioning. And this is going to sound super simple, and it kind of is, but I think that if we just pull those eyes up, posture up a little bit more with those shoulders, and sort of crank that neck back just a little bit, we're going to be able to break the floor a little bit easier and more vertically rather than having to break the floor with your legs and hips and sort of use those erectors to get it the rest of the way up. This is actually, a really similar comment that I had for a couple people on these past couple videos, but you actually do this right away. Like once you get past your knees, you pull that head up and you pull your eyes up, and it's sort of instinctual. And I think that if we can just force that at the beginning instead of only doing it once you start to break those knees, you're going to have a lot more power coming off the floor and, like I said, just be able to get more vertical.